I don't feel like striking out tonight.
I do not feel like striking out either.
You do not?
No.
Dr. Angel, we are going to have a great show. We're excited about this topic.
Yes, we are.
It is super good. We're hearing some music in the background. Got it? Okay. All right. Welcome, everybody. I'm Mama Mac, and she's Dr. Angel. I think she always tells me, holds up a card, I'm Dr. Angel, right?
I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Tommy sees it in there. It's sad that you don't know who you are sometimes. Maybe it's because you have these rough days in counseling, right?
Some very
so
long
that by
days.
the end of the day, you're not even sure. You're so confused.
I am.
So confused. Are we up on Facebook?
Yes, we are.
Oh my gosh, everything's working. This weekend, we got hit by lightning at the station. And Sunday for our show, we walked in here, and you were on with me and somebody else. And we walked in here, and there were circuit boards everywhere and all kinds of stuff. And got fixed right before we got on the air. These guys were amazing, fixed everything. But we're doing good tonight. We are on part 2 of a new series, Negative Thinking Traps. Why is it important to discover some of the negative traps we have in our mental process?
Well, it's important for a number of reasons. I kind of used it as one of our hashtags tonight because what we think is what we become.
That's right. Yeah.
And, we've talked about this many times, but our thoughts become our feelings, become our attitudes, become our actions, and it keeps rolling in this tunnel. And so when we're thinking negatively, we're feeling that way. We're having negative attitudes, negative behaviors, which is leading.
And don't you think this is a big problem for a lot of people, Dr. Angel?
Yes.
A lot of our shows, people, they're birthed out of things that she's dealing with a lot in your practice, or that I'm dealing with, and whatever, with different people, and they just come together. And this series, I think, is extremely important for people. They can get a lot of good instruction on how to begin to change their mindsets.
Absolutely, they can. And that mindset is so important to the quality of our life, the quality of our day.
How do you define mindset?
So our mindset is the overall theme of thoughts that we have rolling around in our brain.
Overall theme of thought.
Yes.
I like that. I've never heard that defined like that. Overall theme of thought. So what do you mean by that?
Sure. So the kind of theme of thoughts might be I'm going to reach my goals, and I want to be successful, and I think I can accomplish what I'm trying to, and I'm going to work hard. That could be a theme of great thoughts, right? So when our mind stops, because your brain is always going all the time.
Sure.
It doesn't stop. And so when we have a theme of positive thoughts, we tend to feel more encouraged, more inspired.
Yes.
We have more energy, right?
Right, yeah.
So when we have these negative thinking traps and get into negative themes like I can't do anything, no one likes me, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not, just keep filling in the blank, then we're defeated before we started. We don't have energy. We're pushing through if we do get through, and we're fighting all the time.
And it becomes a way of thinking and then behaving, as you say, the thinking and the behaving. But then our overall, it can permeate our job performance, our relationships. If you're married or whatever, your marriage, it can pass down to everybody around you, your children. They didn't want to be around you because you're always negative. You're always troubled. You're always upset. And people, this is a very serious topic. And I believe that this series is going to help. We've got this tonight and one more week on this series because we have 9 negative thinking traps that you have figured out, and probably they've come from a lot of other people too, right? As you study and read. Last week we talked about black and white thinking. You want to tell in brief couple sentences what is that, which we covered last week?
Sure. The black and white thinking is that dichotomous thinking that everything's good, everything's bad, this is the only one right way to do it, or that way anything different's wrong. It's not having anything in the middle. We only want to see things from one perspective.
Yeah, just one perspective. What is focusing on the negatives?
Haha. So that's the negative filter. I like to call it kind of like the negative glasses that we see and take
Yeah.
everything in the world. And so we just, if there's something wrong, we find it. If it's not, we look for it. Like we're focusing on what's wrong instead of anything positive or what's good.
So like back in the hippie days when they wore pink sunglasses or whatever it was, everything they looked through was rose-colored glasses, right?
Yes.
That's usually a metaphor for everything looking good, right? Rose-colored
Sure,
glasses.
the rose-colored glasses. Well,
Yeah.
we have a lot of people with negative filters, and what happens is they fall in, and I mean, they start getting into depression, and they get into that
Yes.
chronic depression.
Yeah, chronic.
I endearingly call it the Eeyore depression because
Eeyore.
remember Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh?
I do,
You know?
I do. I have grandkids that love Winnie the Pooh.
Okay,
yes.
so nothing's ever okay.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
Eeyore.
gloomy, the day
Yeah.
is this. You know, that's what that negative thinking happens over time. Like we can't see that.
And how is that bad for your physical body?
Oh my goodness. First of all, it definitely impacts our physical health in so many ways because it's toxic. We're taking all that negativity in there, and negativity starts to, first of all, hurt our feelings and our mood and our attitudes and our behaviors, but then we're making choices that aren't helpful for us. So maybe we're overeating because we want to feel comfortable. Maybe our muscles get more tense because we're, not feeling positive. So things happen physiological to our brains, to our bodies, and over time we have higher rates of all kinds of diseases.
And it affects sleep patterns, don't you think?
Very much so. In fact,
Yeah.
sleep patterns is usually one of the first things that get impacted with this stuff.
Yeah. And I read something yesterday about the importance of sleeping at least 7 hours a night. And really, they say 8 or 9 is optimal,
Yes, they do.
right?
Yep, 8 to 9.
Which they didn't used to say that.
They did not. In fact, it used to be thought that, people can, get away with 4 to 5 hours of sleep.
Right. They would say, this executive is so productive, he only sleeps 4 hours a night. And like that was a great thing back in the day.
And what we have learned from progression of science and research is that we need 8 to 9 hours of sleep even as adults.
Right.
Our sleep does not go decrease because we're an adult. We know kids need more sleeps. Teens need 10
Oh my
to 11.
gosh, teens are crazy.
Yes,
I remember
'cause
when
their
my kids
bodies
would
grow in.
not get up till 11 or 12, on a
course.
Saturday, they were just exhausted,
Of
and
course.
they would sleep like that. So all these things really contribute to your quality of life.
Yes, they do.
And the good news here, Dr. Angel, is you can make changes. And that's why we're doing this series.
Yes,
you can change these negative thinking traps. You can come out of the trap. Now, I'm a golfer. I haven't played for a while, but I love golf. And I always hated it when I got my ball in the sand trap. You know what I mean?
Oh, yes.
You've been there.
Yes.
And, when you get your ball in the sand trap, and especially if it's on a weird angle, and then you're, golly, then you're having to hit behind the ball and sand goes flying and all that. Well, a friend of mine's dad actually was playing golf a few years ago, and at the edge, this was up north somewhere, at the edge of the sand trap, there was actually like a quicksand thing. And he started, older gentleman, and the people, and they're like, come on, and he's like, and he's sinking down in, and they all had to come pull him out of that
my goodness.
thing that was like, that was quite a sand trap. So let's use that as a metaphor. And that did happen to him, and I mean, it was really scary because he's not that huge anymore, he's a smaller, older guy, and here he was just sinking, and he couldn't, as hard as he tried to get himself out, he couldn't. So let's go with that metaphor, because so often we try to do it and we can't.
Sure, we do. And it is like that sinking sand when we get in these negative thinking traps, because that cycle self-feeds of thoughts to feelings to attitudes to behaviors back to thoughts. We start spiraling it almost in this tornado downward,
right?
Because now we have more negative experiences, which feed more negative thoughts. And so it becomes that sand trap that we do oftentimes need some help to get a true, accurate perspective,
right,
and help us get back out of those negative thinking.
Well, and it's just like those friends of his that pulled him up out of that. Sometimes we need just a jolt up out of something, and like, whoa, don't ever go near that little area on that sand trap again, right?
Exactly.
So
And
it's a
usually what
warning.
happens is most people, by the time we're feeling the effects of this, we don't usually just have like one or two of these. We're like working in a lot of these
Yeah,
and a
all the
majority
time.
of the time.
Yeah. Let's go to number 4 tonight. Personalization. And what does that mean? It is a negative thinking trap.
This one's a big one. This one hurts relationships and causes people to be offended when there isn't an offense. That's when I think everything is about me.
Okay.
So if you didn't answer my text, I would think you're mad at me.
Right.
Instead of, oh, maybe you're busy, And so
Right.
now I start thinking that person's mad at me, and then I start feeling down about that. And so when we are personalizing, we just assume everything that's going on with that person. If we saw somebody we knew in the store and they didn't make eye contact with us, then they're mad at us, or they don't like us, or we've come to some conclusion that it's about us.
So it's really an egocentric type problem, isn't it? Where we are like, they didn't react the way I wanted them to react, or
right. Absolutely. I mean, you even can go down to disagreeing with people on a topic. If somebody disagrees with what we think, then we think they're just trying to purposely make us mad or disagree with us, or we take it in as a personalization. Everything around us that happens, somehow it focuses back on me. It's something towards me or
so me. Instead of thinking it could be just a difference of opinion, it is like they disagreed with me on purpose because they wanted to embarrass me in front of my friends.
Exactly.
Right? And hold that thought. You can call in. We have a phone line working tonight, 727-441-3000. And if you'd like to weigh in on things we're talking about, or give us an example, or ask a question of the good doctor, you may do that. And so let's go back to that personalization, Dr. Angel, because I've known people who take it personally. I mean, that's the phrase, right?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, they took that personally. I didn't mean anything like that about them.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And there's a lot of people, and I call that oversensitivity or hypersensitivity also.
Okay, yeah. It
right?
definitely fits in with that, sure.
Okay, which means that they're so sensitive that you just want to, I got to be careful what I say around her, right?
Right, or what you do not say can be taken, anything can be taken personally. And these are the people that usually will try and call you multiple times in a row if you didn't answer the phone, because it's like they need you to answer the phone, otherwise they think you're angry or upset,
or they think you're
wrong.
Purposely not answering their call.
Or if they see you talking to somebody, you might know some personal information about them, they see you talking to someone else, they just assume you're telling that other person
about them. Which probably it's not that at all.
It has probably nothing to do with that.
So personalization takes normal events, right?
Mm-hmm.
And somehow they feel left out of something, or
targeted in some way.
Targeted. I like that word. That is what it is, isn't it? They feel targeted that, okay, you must be talking about me, right?
Yes.
Okay, as a pastor all these years, I've had that happen many times when people would say to me later, I know you were preaching right at me, and you were referring to what I told you in counseling. And no, wasn't about you. Wasn't even thinking about you. No. I mean, and then to refute that makes them feel like I'm putting them down.
Right, and discounting their feelings.
And I've fallen into that trap a few times, you know. And it's really a psychological problem with the person who personalizes everything. That's what you're saying.
Absolutely. It's exactly what's going on. And this destroys relationships.
How?
Oh, well.
Boy, I see it, but you tell us.
We're thinking everything is around us that's happening, that's, everyday stuff is about us, and we start not trusting people. We're angry. We start getting bitter. We start getting resentment. We start, getting in this horrible place with the people in our life.
I've known people who, this was when I was a stay-at-home mom, many, many years ago, and there would be, little groups of friends that played golf or did tennis or did certain things back then, right? And if one little group went out to lunch and somebody else wasn't invited, or, it was like this kind of thing. Oh, well, I get a phone call. Well, so-and-so does it. They're really mad at me. Well, what'd you do? Well, no, I didn't do anything. I don't know what I did. I mean, they're mad at me because they, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. And that's what happens. And it starts to destroy those relationships because people are personalizing. They're getting angry, mad, feeling all kinds of stuff over something that had 9 out of 10 times nothing to do with them.
Nothing to do with them.
And instead of being open with those feelings, like, hey, I noticed, you took a while to get back to my text. Did I do something, or are you upset with me?
Yeah,
Like,
why not just
let's
confront
ask,
it? Why don't we
right?
just ask? Well, why don't people ask like that? The people that
They do not. They
that
just
struggle
assume.
with this personalization, they just assume, don't they?
I think,
hard
yeah.
feelings happen like this.
Very hard feelings
Yeah,
happen like
yeah.
this.
Yeah.
But they don't. And I think it's part of it's probably because they're just assuming it did. So why would I put words to that? Because they don't want to hear the words back. But we need to be able to communicate what we're thinking and feeling honestly.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot with all three of these tonight. Okay? So this first one, personalization. What do you say to the listener right now that's saying, whoa, that's me?
Okay.
I do that.
Well,
What do
first of
you
all,
say, Dr. Angel? Because this show is life coaching and free counseling, right?
Yes.
So what do you say to the person who struggles with personalization?
Well, first of all, we have to look at, it takes a lot of courage to recognize that's what we're doing, and we can change it when we can see that's what we're doing. And then kind of seeing, okay, how am I communicating in my relationships? What do I need to communicate? What relationships am I having conflict with or negative feelings about? And start learning how to look at other possibilities. And that a lot of times with personalization, it does take professional therapy because this is a deep-rooted.
This is deep-rooted.
It usually follows into some early rejection.
I was just getting ready to say, don't you think it goes back to childhood and rejection?
It does.
Because a lot of times if a certain child was labeled the bad child, oh my gosh, that's my troubled kid. That's my kid that's always causing trouble. And, quit doing that, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, I get people that claim it. They walk in my office. Oh, I'm just the black sheep of the family. Always have been, always will be.
Right.
Like, that's the kind of stuff that that lays the fertile ground for us to get sensitive and start personalizing everything.
And oversensitivity or hypersensitivity is probably part of this, don't you think?
Oh, yes. It is so much in the negative thinking traps. And here's the thing. When we're personalizing things in our life like that, we're hurting ourselves. We feel so much pain and constant rejection and constant negativity that it consumes us.
So it's got to be addressed.
It does.
And if you recognize it in yourself, get help. Dr. Angel 501-6557. The second one tonight is catastrophizing. And I used to tell you that wasn't a word. And then you proved to me that I was wrong.
Yes.
And I thought, she's just beating up on me because
it is a real word. Bona fide real
Am I
word.
Personalizing that?
You are
personalizing that. No. I mean, catastrophizing. What is it? That's a negative thinking trap. Number 2 for tonight.
So the best, most simplest way to explain this is always thinking in worst case scenarios.
Oh my gosh.
So everything that's going around or could possibly is at the catastrophe. So we go straight to the absolute worst case that could ever happen.
And so we're already there. So we're not worried about there because we think we're already there, or do we still think it's going to get worse? Whatever it is.
Oh, well, we just sit in this. And so we start becoming very paralyzed because we are always considering everything in worst case scenarios. I'll give you an example of somebody who catastrophized. I know of somebody who saw a police car pull up to the house, park on the street in the house next door to them, looked out the window, noticed the police were, in the neighborhood, thought that the police were going to come in after them because they must have done something wrong at some point in their life, and now they're getting caught and they're going to go to prison. Like, they had themselves already in prison for life and on death row.
And they didn't even know of anything they'd done?
They did. Yes. Just because they saw the police car outside.
Boy, isn't that an extreme
That's
catastrophizing?
An extreme catastrophizing, but I can tell you that is just true
I think this happens a lot in the dating world.
Oh, if they don't answer the phone, then they must be dating someone else. And yes, or they have another family, and sometimes that could be true. But in this day and world, I don't want to discount that.
It could be.
But when we catastrophize, like we think that, we've already got ourselves, I'm going to fail out of school. I'm never going to get a job. I'm going to be homeless. And like if we got a bad grade on one test. That's catastrophizing.
Right.
And, when you hear it, you're just like, oh, my gosh, that's like.
Just the opposite of that is our great Tampa Bay Bucks, and who won the Super Bowl, and yay, yay, yay. And I heard somebody talking about there was a point in the season when we were 5-7.
Yes.
And, that did not look good. And people were going, oh, well, Tom Brady must not be that great. And, hey, they just really didn't, 5-7. And from that point on, it was like a switch went off in him probably and in others on the team. Oh, yeah, we are. Oh, yeah, we are. Right?
Sure.
I mean, Tom Brady and when he was a Patriot, I wasn't crazy about him because, that was your guy.
Because he was on my team and not hers.
That's right. It was, yeah. But now that he's on my team, yes, of course, I think he's great. So, the announcer was saying 5-7, and people were being real negative about Tom and about the Bucks and all that, and Super Bowl champs, right? And he stands up the other night after they won and said, we'll be right back here next year. Now, what is that? That is the absolute opposite of catastrophizing.
It is.
Right?
That's believing. That's choosing to believe and be hopeful and do your best and stay hopeful that good things can happen if you, do your part and work hard and play hard. And
he's 43 years old, and I think he's an example to all of us of. I don't think he's perfect, but I think he's an amazing athlete, right?
Sure.
Probably the greatest quarterback there ever was, okay? So this guy, I think a lot of it has been his mental strength.
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, we'll take him for a minute here because I can run with this one.
You run with that.
He was a 10th round draft pick.
Yes, he was.
10th round draft pick.
Right.
And when he came in, his first season in New England is when Drew Bledsoe was injured and went out.
I remember it all.
They went to the Super Bowl and he won. And he made more in his first playoff game than he did that whole season.
Right.
It was against all odds. The Rams, they were laughing at him.
Right.
But he walked in there. How about the Super Bowl against Atlanta when they were 4 touchdowns down or 3?
I remember
3
that
or 4,
night
whatever
too.
it was.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And he didn't stop trying. He didn't go, oh, that's it. We're doomed. It's over.
Oh,
it's done.
yeah. Oh my gosh, this is insurmountable. Announcers were saying 4 touchdowns now. No,
I was at a Super Bowl party with all Atlanta fans, and they're just like, oh, we won. And I'm like, but the game's not over.
It's not over till it's over.
And he played his hardest, no matter what the odds said, no matter what the scoreboard said, no matter what, was.
But that takes
focus.
It takes almost tunnel vision of, okay, I have a job to do. I'm going to do it. And this pertains, folks, to your personal life, your work life, your family life. And that is the focus, which we're going to talk about right after this break, where we are getting ready to hear all the great things about Dr. Angel Tommy.
Entertaining and informative radio for the Sunshine State. Dr. Angel Falzoni specializes in a variety of therapeutic areas, including trauma, depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, stress management, self-esteem, interpersonal relationships, ADHD, behavioral addictions, as well as spirituality issues. A Florida native, she holds multiple degrees, including a bachelor's in education and philosophy, a master's of arts in professional counseling and marriage and family therapy, and a PhD in psychology. Dr. Angel is also a Florida licensed mental health counselor. She has worked with youth and adolescents for 14 plus years and has worked extensively in women's mental health for the past 6 years. She has worked in agencies providing mental health services to family and youth at high risk. Dr. Angel is an accomplished psychotherapist who works with children, teens, adults, couples, and families. Dr. Angel has advanced training and experience in working with LGBTQ-specific individuals and issues. Dr. Angel can help you. Just call for an appointment at 727-501-6557 or online at drangelsdevelopment.com. Dr. Angel Falzoni, support for individuals, couples, and families. 727-501-6557.
Prompt professional service is what you will receive when you allow Marcia McAllister of Charles Rittenberg Realty to help find that perfect home or list your home for sale. With over 23 years of experience in the Tampa Bay area, you will enjoy a smooth transaction from start to finish. Call Marcia today at 727-417-0707. Now is a great time to buy or sell a home. Call Marcia McAllister at 727-417-0707.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
All right, welcome back to the second half of Go Yard. Right here with Dr. Angel. I am Mama Mac, and we're excited about the show as we always are every week. Now in our 7th year.
Yes.
I'm still having fun. I don't know about you.
I'm having a ball.
We will have an anniversary the middle of April. 7 years.
We're September. April is the other show.
Oh, that's right. April's the Sunday show. You're right. It's September. You're right. Thanks for the correction. Yes. So you can listen to old shows right here at tantalknetwork.com. Go to podcast, go to the name of the show, Go Yard, which means hitting a home run in life. The show is all about growing emotionally, mentally, socially, psychologically, mentally, all that.
Well, you know, mental health is a really important component of our overall health.
It is. It is.
We can't ignore it. If we do, we'll have issues. And so that's really wanting to take the stigma out of it, but also let us know that, let everyone know we all have difficulties and struggles and need a little help sometimes.
And don't you think some of them are there since childhood?
Oh, yeah.
Some of them have perhaps hereditary, and a lot of them are environmental, and it is what it is. And it's better to tackle them and deal with them than to just let them grow and grow.
Yes, absolutely. And stop letting them wreak havoc in your life and in your relationships and who you are and what goals you're willing to set for yourself or how you see yourself.
I think a lot of people settle. They settle for what is normal to them. They settle for how they've observed their perhaps parents, grandparents behave, or the family dynamics. I've heard people say, oh, our family's terrible. Everybody yells and screams. Nobody talks to each other for months. Things like that. I know that's out there in a lot of families. And we gotta be purposeful. That's your word, about making changes to better our own lives, right?
Sure.
And not just following in grandma's footsteps.
And not being afraid or doing it afraid to take those steps to make those changes for ourselves. Right. Alone, if that's what it takes. If nobody around us going with us, like to still be willing to do that. If you talk to my dad, he'll tell you I was a very stubborn child. I was told my whole life I've been a very hard-headed, stubborn child.
That is hard to believe.
Be hard to believe.
Yeah.
No. But, in my life, that stubbornness has been one of those things that's pushed me so forward, because I dare to believe I could when everyone said I couldn't. I dare to believe I could try even if I wasn't sure I could do it. Like it didn't matter what was around me. I was stubborn enough to think the impossible was possible.
And don't you think that is really the mental makeup of a leader, someone that is successful, that accomplishes a lot? You have like a PhD, a couple bachelor's degrees, a couple master's degrees, and with 3 little kids, you managed to do all of that. And a lot of times I think people make excuses for their lack of good mental health, or their lack of success, or because they have all the reasons why this isn't going to work, or it can't work, or I'm too busy, or I'm this, or I'm that.
They talk themselves out of it before they've ever even given it a try. And so, these negative thinking traps are what shackles us from living our best
just
life.
Like chains around our legs, right?
Absolutely.
Keeping us back from progress. And if you just now are joining us, go back and listen to the beginning of the show afterwards. It's on Facebook, on your page or mine. Personalization is one of those negative thinking traps that we talked about in the first part. And right now we're finishing up with the second one, catastrophizing. So for anybody that's just checking in right now, define catastrophizing, and we'll talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, that's just thinking the worst case scenario is going to happen for whatever's in front of us. So we've already talked ourselves pretty much out of anything before we've given it a chance, or we're just expecting this worst case scenario to happen. You hear it in Florida all the time when there's like a hurricane or a storm blooming out there. There'll be people in the stores, and you'll hear them chattering, "Oh, this is going to knock everyone flat." Like the news will catastrophize a lot. People get stuck in this like really extreme dramatic thinking. I think we're trained to from our culture. Like you can't turn on the news without it being over dramatized, right? Over sensationalized. Well, that's part of catastrophizing.
Sure it is. Yeah.
And so we're expecting these horrific things to happen. Well, how are we going to have strength and energy and encouragement to push forward when we're waiting for this horrific thing to happen?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's a common thing, don't you think? And there are degrees of it.
Yes, there are.
And growing up in a household that everything was always the worst case scenario, right? Coming down the pike. Oh, your dad's going to lose his job. I know he is. He's going to lose his job. He is, blah, 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 blah. Or, and we're not going to be able to eat, and we're not going to be able to have clothes.
We're going to be homeless.
We're going to be homeless. And, in the COVID thing that we have been in for the last year or so, some of that negative stuff actually has come true for a lot of people, where they have lost jobs, they have lost income, whatever. And it's really been hard for a lot of people.
Sure, it has.
But in order to come out of that cycle of catastrophizing, okay, I'm going to put pressure on you again. What can they do if they recognize, I always think of the worst case scenario. I never think it's going to turn out okay. This new job is not going to be good. It's not going to be, I know it's not. I'm not going to like it. It's going to be terrible. I'm going to, blah, 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 blah. What can they do?
Well, so catastrophizing definitely runs deep and hard for a lot of people. So this is definitely one of those ones that a lot of times people do need extra help to start changing for themselves. But one of the things I encourage people to do is, first of all, when was the last time the catastrophe you thought would happen happened?
Right.
And what did you do? You survived it because you're here.
Right.
So what we do is start working. If this happens, then we give them tools. What can I do? What can I do? If this happens, what can I do?
Come up with a solution, right?
And if we can start finding where we can survive those, if that happens, then we start getting more and more encouraged.
Right.
And so,
yeah.
So this was a process, but it's definitely one that it's changing the way and understanding. I have survived every catastrophe I've been in my life because I'm breathing and I'm alive.
Right. As a realtor, I used to teach real estate to young realtors, and they would say, "Oh, I think my deal's falling apart. My listing is." I said, "Well, you still have a listing, so you can sell it to somebody else." Well, but you can. So what if you didn't have that?
Right.
and you just learn to begin to think on there's got to be a solution. I think to cope with catastrophizing, you've got to become more solution oriented.
More problem solving focus.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And if you don't seem to see an out or a way out of something, go to somebody who can help you see the way out. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so often I think we get caught in that trap where we are just so obsessed almost with the negative that we're going down this time. We're going down with the ship,
We do, and I definitely have seen an increase of this with everything going on with COVID. I mean, I have people who are so fearful to go to the doctor because they know that they're going to be told they have COVID, and that means they'll be the one who dies. Like, they have it so ingrained that all these really bad things are going to happen that they're paralyzing themselves. And so these are the patients that I bring into the big room with the big dry erase board across in the office, and we start writing down what are all your biggest fears. Let's just lay them out here and right now. Let's put them on paper.
That's good.
And then we start putting a plan of action together and taking away those powers.
And that's what you do for catastrophizing. Let's go to the third one tonight. Perfectionism. Setting unrealistic expectations.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this is almost kind of the opposite of catastrophizing in a way. It's like everything's got to be perfect.
Well, not everything. I have to be perfect.
Okay.
So I have unrealistic expectations for myself. So I expect I should be able to do everything I need to do. I should always look my best. Everything needs to be done perfect the first time. I should have all the energy to do what I need to do. I should be able to balance everything. I need to do it perfect.
Where does that come from?
Ooh, that's another one of those deep-rooted things.
I think it is too.
Yeah, so it's not allowing ourselves. Usually it's a self-esteem issue, because if I make a mistake, then that tells me there's something wrong with me.
Okay, so for parents who, let's say they have 3 kids. I have 3, you have 3. Okay, so we can somehow foster that thing in them where, go on, finish my sentence.
Well, they feel like they have to be perfect.
They have to be perfect.
Mistake.
And if we have a child, and we all do that have had more than one child, have differences in those children. They are definitely going to be different. Mm-hmm. One may be better in schoolwork. One may be an artist. One may be a gymnast. One may be this or that. But parents tend to want all of them to be equally successful.
Well, and we'll take it up a notch. A lot of parents want their children to fulfill whatever the parents' fulfilled dreams were for their life.
Right.
And so there's a lot of pressure for these kids to maybe like a sport or an academic that the kid has no like or love for.
Right.
And they're taught you have to be perfect. You have to do it right. And everyone's seeing you. And that's where your value comes from, is being perfect and having it all together. And so kids learn this very early on.
And remember JonBenét Ramsey?
Mm-hmm.
A little girl that was murdered.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they ever solved her murder.
I don't think they ever did either. But it was, over 20 years ago, wasn't it?
It's been a long time ago. But she was like 5 or 6, and she was in beauty pageants, right? And when you look at those pictures back then, I remember when all that was going on. And these little tiny girls looked like adults.
Yes, they did.
On their hair, their makeup, their everything, and it was like her mother had been that, right? Had been Miss America or something, as I remember.
Sure. And so been a pageant and been in pageants. And that's what, parents we do these things to our kids. And so a lot of perfectionism starts from childhood. Maybe we only get, acknowledgement from our parents if we do something super exceptional. So we feel like that's the only time,
it's the only time they pay attention.
Right. And so.
But, one of the values of having more than one child is having diversity in those kids. I mean, not diversity is not right word.
No,
you know what I mean?
The right word. We want diversity, different talents, different likes, different skill sets, different, all kinds of different things. Personalities are completely different.
And my 3 kids totally different in a lot of ways. Yeah. And that's okay. That's desirable.
Absolutely it is. In fact, when I was, my kid, I like all of our kids, are all three very different. I had three different standards when it came to different things for the kids because they had three different abilities. So,
Okay.
where one child, making B's, C's, and a couple D's was really, it was good for that child. I had another child that wouldn't have been acceptable for because he was, had a different standard. And so, this isn't fair. Why can't he make a C and I can't make a C? But because you have different talents and abilities, we're not all on this equal, they weren't on this equal plane. And as adults, they're all equally successful in their own ways.
In their own ways. And so I think where parents and grandparents get in trouble a lot of times is expecting the same results.
For every single kid.
And, well, why aren't you smart like your brother? Or why aren't you better socially with people? Then you look at your sister. She can make friends.
She's got friends all over
and
the
look
place.
at you. You're just a hermit,
Right.
And I think parents, having been one for the kids at those ages, I think that parents can really get into a lot of problems and cause a lot of this perfectionism to be fostered in kids. Like, oh, I got to be perfect. Or mom, and resentments form from that.
Yes, they do.
Don't you think?
They do, but people take this into their adult life and they're very stressed. They put too much on their plate. They can't really handle it all. It's very overwhelming to always expect perfection because no one is perfect. So
Right.
we set a bar that's not perfect. And I get this even with setting too high of goals. I'll get someone who walk in the room and they're like, okay, this is my goal and whatever. Let's just use losing weight. I want to lose weight. I'm going to lose 50 pounds in 3 months. Like,
Yeah, no, you're not.
no, we're not. Like, that's not how we do behavioral and lasting change. Like, we take this step by step and they can't handle that because they're so feeling only valued when it's perfect. And yet one of the things I always do to these people is I reflect it back to them. Well, if you had a friend with this issue, what would you say to your friend? And they're like, well, that's okay. Take a break. I'm like, so why is it okay for your friend, but not for you? Like, just trying to reflect it back because they're willing to give other people breaks,
Right.
but not themselves.
Right.
And they are so stressed. These people are extremely type A. They're extremely stressed.
And don't you think a lot of times it's because they're trying to meet up to somebody else's expectations?
Oh, yeah. And they're always changing. That bar always changes.
Right.
Always
Yeah.
changes.
And I think that parents can really contribute to this problem of perfectionism.
Mm-hmm.
They can be their expectations can be so high. And perhaps one or more of the kids cannot do those things academically that somebody else can, whatever.
Or athletically or artistically or whatever. I mean, I think I've seen parents in almost all arenas like put this undue pressure on their kids to perform in some
Right.
way, and they start taking in that perfectionism. Or if they can't, they totally give up and feel like they can never do anything worthwhile.
Right. Exactly. So, how serious is this, setting unrealistic expectations for people in our lives? And it could be somebody you're dating. It could be somebody, one of your children or grandchildren. It could be somebody at work that works under you or with you or whatever, that you have set unrealistic expectations.
Yeah, anytime we're looking at unrealistic expectations, we're looking for failure because that's what's going to happen.
Oh, that's profound.
It is, because there's nothing that can't happen. Perfectionism does not exist in humans. We are not computers or robots.
Right.
Like, we have feelings, we have, all kinds of stuff that interfere. So we have to step back. And, one of the things that I always work on chunking with people for this very reason.
You work on what? Chunking.
Chunking, where we take small
Oh, yes, chunking.
little goals, and I have a patient right now that's really stuck on, his life drastically changed and he's really stuck on getting his life back to where it was at the zenith of his career and his, life and everything. But that's not the reality. We have to learn to take the small steps right now. And now we're at the point where these small steps are starting to make bigger differences. But it's setting realistic expectations.
Well, that's huge right there, setting realistic. And as parents, we need to look at our kids and realize there are differences and they're not all going to be the same and have the same desires or the same scholastic interests,
Sure.
And And that should be okay with us. But for a lot of parents, it is not okay.
No, for a lot of parents, it really is not. And to the point where the parents are doing the kids' projects and homework assignments
Right.
and
Yes.
yelling at the teachers to let them have 2 and 3 opportunities to take the test.
Right.
And,
Yes.
you know, I mean, I've even watched parents lying on college applications and like all kinds of stuff to
Look
get.
what happened to, what was it, Lori, what's her name that went to prison over that?
Oh, sure.
I forget her name.
And it's not as uncommon as people think
Oh, I
it
know.
is.
And it was just a matter of trying to buy.
She just got caught.
She got caught and trying to buy that entrance into the university they wanted
Right.
for their child. Right.
And not realizing that if that's not our child, like what they want for themselves, and if that's not where they're functioning and their potential is, we've set them up to fail.
We have set them up to, and I like that word because that is what happens when we put unrealistic expectations on those around us and on ourselves.
And on ourselves.
Because we can set ourselves up for failure,
All
correct?
the time. Yes, we can.
Can you think of an example? The weight thing.
Sure. I mean, we set ourselves up that I can manage this committee, that committee, volunteer here, work 60 hours a week, manage that, take
And-
my kids
and
here,
take my
cook
kids.
dinner every night. Like, that's not realistic.
It begins to weigh on you big time, right? It is not realistic, right? Yeah.
and stepping back and realizing.
And I think it is a wonderful thing when a parent or grandparent can say, okay, let me hear what you say. Child, you have straight A's and you don't want to go to college. Okay. What do you want to do? What do you want to do?
Sure.
Because you're going to have to earn a living. So
Right.
you can't live in my basement. So Florida, we have no basement. So that works. But what are you going to do? What do you see your life being like? And give kids
The room
the
to
room
make their
to
own
do
plan.
that. Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
You know, when my kids were little, that was always the conversation from when they were kindergarten up was, you have to have a plan, but what I don't care what the plan is as long as you have a plan.
Right.
And honestly, I only have one kid that went to college and has a 2-year degree and is working in his career. I have one that went in the military and is working in his career. Like I have one that we're not sure what he's going to end up with yet because he's still working on his plan. It's shifted a little bit, but he's worked towards seeing what he likes and doesn't like.
And that's what's important.
That's all that's
what's important. My oldest son, who is our announcer on this show, Ryan, he went to college for a while and he goes, I don't want to do this. I don't know what I want to do. He ended up, his field is sales, just kind of like me, only his was not real estate. His is the agricultural area. And he's very successful vice president of a company, head of sales and marketing, and he does very, very well. And he did not go on and finish that degree, but he really didn't need to.
Right.
But about a year or two ago, he found himself in the company he was working for then, hiring PhDs and all these people. He was in charge of all these people. And he laughed one day and he said, I'm glad they don't ask me what my degrees are. But he didn't, that was what happened to
Gifts
him.
and his talents, and that
Right.
was his path.
And then I have a son who's a law professor. So, it's just totally different.
Absolutely.
But I guess that's the whole point, guys. We have to give our children, our grandchildren, and those around us, our mates, whatever, room to be who they are.
Yes, and figure it out for themselves. I mean, I remember when my youngest was really little, he wanted to be a police officer, and we
Yeah.
started in the police academy. And then he realized that really wasn't what he wanted when he's, and now he's switched, and he's been doing management and working a job and learning management. And now, he's finding a talent he didn't know he had. Like, so letting people just
Let them
stop.
discover it. Yes.
Let them figure it out. They'll
Let
be happy.
them figure it out. But it's the control in a lot of parents and perfectionism.
Well, what are my friends going to think if my kids don't go to the 4-year university? It's a community college isn't even good enough for a lot of families anymore. And I'm like, why? You're saving a lot of money there. Like, there's no logic reasoning. It's what are people going to think of us?
And that's a huge trap.
Mm-hmm.
That is a real negative thinking trap. When we get ourselves worried more about what other people think about our children's accomplishments
Than our children's
than our children's happiness.
Yeah. Sure is. Wow, this has been a great show.
Yeah, it really has. I'm enjoying this because I think we all struggle with some of these. You know, it's something that we can all take a look at in our lives. And as always, we encourage you to go listen to our podcast right here on TanTalkNetwork.com. Go to podcast, go to Go Yard. We've got tons of shows there. And we also on our website, GoYard2014.org, ORG. We've got a lot of shows there with titles that we've done, all kinds of series on every kind of topic. We've done it through these 7 years. So we encourage you to go there and tell other people about Go Yard. We still love doing this show every week, do
Yes,
we not?
do.
In our 7th year, that is crazy. I can't believe that I started to say that I put up with you that much, but then I really meant it to be the other way around.
Oh.
See? Yeah, that you
Well,
put up with
this
me.
is on tape, and I do have proof
I
of
know
your
that
words,
you
so.
put up with me all these years, and we put up with Tommy, but he's a sweetheart. So anyway, so just kind of sum up where we were tonight.
Wow, sum it all up in 2 minutes or less, right? So
Oh, yeah.
Tonight we we looked at personalizing when we think the things happening around us is about us. When, people aren't answering their phone, they might be mad at us if they didn't greet us in the store. What did we do? We got, it's not all about us. There's all kinds of reasons why things happen, and we need to use our words more. Catastrophizing is where we look thinking in the worst case scenarios. We're always expecting the worst case. We will find worst case when we're looking for worst case.
Yeah,
so
we will.
find what we're looking for. And so that
Yes.
is a horrible thinking trap. And then perfectionism, where we just set the standard unrealistic, too high, and we are not enjoying our life. We are just so busy trying to meet an unrealistic standard.
And for our lives or for those around
for
us, like
people
we were
around
just
us,
talking
right.
about our kids and grandkids and so forth. So, these are things we can work on, Dr. Angel. These
Yes.
are not things that are impossible to conquer. It just this show, what we try to do is point out things like, hey, food for thought, work on this, think on this. If this seems to be a thinking trap that you are prone to, then it's a good time to take a look at it.
Sure.
Make a journal. We're big on journals.
Sure. And when you catch yourself, wait, that's catastrophizing, or wait, I'm personalizing this. Could there be, let me ask them, are they upset with me? Did I do something to offend you? Or use your words. We've done 3 shows, 4 shows. We did 3 shows on use
Using
your
your
words.
words.
That personalization is a great one to use your words for.
It really is, don't you think? Because so often we don't, and we just think it is a certain way, and it may not be that way at all.
Correct.
Oh, we love doing these shows. So we've got 3 more negative thinking traps. So join us again next week at 6:06 p.m. right here on Tan Talk Network. And if you want a show about victorious living and God in your life, we're having a series on heaven right now. Join us on Sunday afternoon at 3 p.m. for me, Mama Mac. And Dr. Angel will be on with me on that show this Sunday. And